The Hall of Stars in the royal palace of Zirath was filled with bright lights and silence. Queen Thalara sat on her high throne, her eyes cold, sharp, and shining like two violet gems. She was tall, graceful, and strong, the ruler of the most feared alien empire in this part of the galaxy. Her people believed in strength, pride, and war, and today, she was marrying a human. His name was Elias Kane. He walked slowly across the marble floor, his boots making soft sounds. He didn't wear armor or carry a weapon, just a simple Earth style. Black coat and gray shirt underneath. His brown hair was a little messy, and his green eyes looked calm, not weak, just peaceful. The nobles whispered among themselves. This is the man? Looks like a farmer. Why did the queen agree to this joke? But Thalara didn't show emotion. This marriage was not about love, it was about politics. Earth had become a new force in the galaxy. Its people, once ignored, had begun to rise. Their technologies were strange. Their diplomacy was clever. And this man, Elias Kane, come as Earth's representative. The queen had agreed to marry him to seal the peace. You stand before me now, Elias Kane, Thalara said. Her voice echoed across the hall. Do you swear to serve the Empire of Zirath with loyalty and honor? Elias bowed his head slightly. I do. Do you swear to protect our union and stand beside me as my partner? I do. She looked at him closely, trying to see anything dangerous in him, but he only stood there quietly like the wind. Before a storm, I, Queen Thalara, accept this bond. May the stars witness our pact. A strange silence fell, and then the ceremony was done. That night, after the public feast, Thalara sat alone with Elias in her private chambers. She didn't know what to expect. Humans were still new to her. They had strange ways, strange emotions. Elias, however, was quiet and polite. You said little today, she told him. I didn't think I was expected to speak much, Elias replied with a small smile. It was your day, after all. Most men would try to impress. Me or fear me? I do neither, he said simply. You are impressive on your own, and fear, that's a waste. Her eyes narrowed. You speak boldly, I speak honestly. She didn't know whether to be annoyed or amused. Days passed. The queen returned to her duties meetings. War. Councils, court matters. Elias stayed mostly in the background. He walked in the palace gardens, studied Zirathian customs, and sometimes helped the staff in the kitchens or library. The nobles laughed behind his back. The human acts like a servant, they joked. He's soft. He doesn't even carry a weapon. But Elias never reacted to insults, smiled politely. He even thanked the ones who mocked him. Queen Thalara watched him from a distance. She was confused. She had met warriors, soldiers, and kings. All of them had tried to challenge her. This man did not. He asked questions about the stars, about her people's traditions, about history. One evening, during a quiet dinner, she asked him, what did you do on Earth before becoming a diplomat? I was a farmer, he answered. On the northern plains of Terra, you worked the soil? Yes. Before that, I served in Earth's defense forces, but I left that behind. Thalara leaned forward slightly. So you were a soldier? For a time. What made you leave? Elias looked into her eyes, calm but serious. Because war teaches us to fight. But peace teaches us to build. I wanted to build something. The queen was silent for a long moment. She didn't like soft words. But somehow, when he spoke, they didn't sound weak. Late one night, Thalara couldn't sleep. She walked through the royal courtyard, where the moonlight touched the stones. That's when she saw him. Elias was alone near the edge of the training ground. In his hands was a long stick, just a wooden staff, but he moved with it like it was a blade. His feet were silent, his steps precise. Each swing was smooth, deadly, and beautiful. She watched from the shadows. This wasn't just training. This was skill. Real, practiced skill. The queen narrowed her eyes. So, you are not just a simple man, are you? She didn't step forward. She simply turned and walked back to her chambers, her mind full of questions. A few days later, a problem came. to the palace. A trade dispute between two powerful houses was about to turn into violence. The nobles shouted in court. Accusations flew. Weapons were nearly drawn. But before Thalara gave her judgment, Elias raised his hand. "May I speak, Your Majesty?" All eyes turned. Some laughed again. "The human wants to solve our problems." Thalara gave a nod. "Speak." Elias walked forward and calmly explained a deal. He had studied both houses' history, found old records, and used Earth-style diplomacy to offer a compromise. He suggested sharing profits from a third trade route that had been ignored. Surprisingly, both sides agreed. The court was shocked. Thalara looked at him with a new kind of curiosity. "You are full of surprises." Elias smiled. "So is Earth." But not everyone was pleased. One noble, General Varrock, stood after the court ended. He was strong, brutal, and proud. He hated humans. He had fought against them in border wars before the peace. He walked up to Elias and spat at his feet. "You dishonor this court with your tricks," he said. "I challenge you. Let's see if the Queen's pet has claws." Elias didn't flinch. "I don't accept challenges from children," the court gasped. Thalara stood. "Enough." Varrock stepped back, burning with rage. Later, the Queen met Elias in private again. "You could have taken his challenge," she said. "Why did you hold back?" Elias looked out the window. "'Cause I'm not here to fight. Not yet." "Not yet," he turned to her. "If the day comes when this empire truly needs my strength, I will show it. Until then, I'll keep being your quiet husband." And with that, he gave a small bow and left. That night, Thalara sat alone in the dark. The stars above shined through. The glass ceiling of her room she thought about. Earth. She thought about the quiet man who walked beside her, but said so little. A man who had the skills of a warrior, but the heart of a builder. A man who refused to be provoked, but had the fire of something ancient in him. For the first time in her life, the Queen didn't know what to make of someone, and deep inside, a strange feeling began to grow. Not fear, not anger, but curiosity. The air inside the royal palace of Zirath was calm, but beneath that calm, trouble was growing. It had been nearly 2 weeks since Queen Thalara married the human, Elias Kane. Most nobles had expected him to be quiet and useless. And he was quiet, but not useless. That confused people. They began to whisper. In the shadowed hallways of the palace, servants spoke in low voices. Advisors discussed old files. The nobles started asking questions they hadn't cared about before. Who is he? Really? Why does the Queen let him sit in meetings now? There are no military records of his past on Earth's public database? How convenient. The most powerful whisper came from General Varrock, the Queen's rival and most dangerous military. "Commander, he hides something," Varrock said in a private war meeting. "I know battle when I see it." That man carries himself like a soldier, not a farmer. Queen Thalara sat on her throne thinking. She didn't speak right away. She remembered Elias moving with that wooden staff at night. Silent, sharp, like a blade that had been sheathed for too long. She had ordered her spies to search Earth's archives for Elias Kane's military records. But all they found was a simple listing: service completed, file closed, no battles, no rank, no details, to clean, to empty. That was not normal, that night. Thalara left her room quietly and walked through the palace gardens. She found Elias sitting near a small fountain. He looked peaceful, watching the stars above. "You like silence," she said as she approached. Elias looked up and smiled. "Silence tells the truth, even when people don't." She sat beside him, her silver robe shining under moonlight. "Want to ask you something?" she said. "Then ask," he replied. "What did you do in the Earth's military?" There was a pause. "I served," he said, "and then I left." That's not an answer. He didn't look at her. "Some things are better left in the past, Your Majesty." Her eyes narrowed. "I don't trust secrets. It's not in my palace. Not in my court. Especially not from the man I married." Elias sighed. If I told you who I was, would it change how you see me? She didn't reply. Earth doesn't like to brag about its shadows, he said. But sometimes to protect peace, you have to do things in the dark. Thalera stood. I will find the truth myself. Elias looked up at her. I'm sure. You will. The next morning, Queen Thalera ordered a hidden security team to follow Elias. He walked through the lower parts of the city, wearing a cloak like any common citizen. He entered a small bookshop, spoke to an old trader, and left with 3 scrolls. He visited a school and talked to young Zerathians about Earth's ancient philosophies. He donated food to a nearby shelter. Then he returned to the palace. Every step was watched. Every word was recorded, but there was nothing strange, nothing evil, nothing violent. Still, the queen's curiosity only grew. That night, she reviewed old battle reports from Earth's wars, especially one war that had frightened even the most powerful empires, the Crimson Rift conflict, a bloody 5-year war where Earth had fought 3 alien coalitions and won in those reports. She found a code name used by enemy fleets, Ghostblade, a human commander who never showed his face, who led Black Ops raids, destroyed fleets without a trace, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. But there was no picture, no full name, only fear and rumors, and one note caught her eye. Rumored to use energy blades forged on neutron cores, no survivors report direct sighting. Earth denies existence. The queen sat back in her chair, heart beating faster. She remembered Elias's stick, his quiet speed, the way he disarmed that assassin without effort. Could it be? Meanwhile, Elias walked through the royal gardens with one of the queen's advisors, a young noble named Rollo Vex. Rollo had been friendly since the beginning, curious about Earth, you know? Rollo said with a sly smile, "People are starting to wonder about you." Elias raised an eyebrow. "People always wonder, but you're not just a farmer or a diplomat, are you?" Rollo asked quietly. "You carry yourself like someone who's seen real battle." Elias didn't answer. "You should be careful," Rollo added. "General Varric is not patient. He's gathering support among the older families. If he thinks you're a threat, he'll strike." Elias looked at the garden's flowers, gently touching a red one, then let him strike first. At the same time, Varric was busy forming his plan. He had already gathered support from several noble houses. His next step was to discredit Elias completely. Sent spies to Earth, but those spies vanished. Then he decided to test the human himself. He hired a group of off-world mercenaries to follow Elias, hoping they would scare him into showing his true strength or breaking completely. But when the mercenaries attacked in the lower market district, something unexpected happened. Elias didn't fight. Instead, he moved between the attackers, dodging calmly, redirecting them into each other. He used one attacker's momentum to flip him into a wall, then disarmed another with only a step and a hand twist. No blood. Death. No showy violence, just control. The whole fight lasted less than 30 seconds. Then he walked away. But the mercenaries were captured by local guards. They talked. They told the guards we couldn't touch him. It was like he knew every move. Before we made it, Queen Thalera received the report and read every word carefully. She called Elias to her private chamber again. "You were attacked." "I was," Elias said. "Why didn't you kill them? They were amateurs." "Not worth bloodshed." The queen stood from her chair. "Who are you really?" Elias looked into her eyes for a long time. Then he said, "I was called many names. One of them was Ghostblade. But I haven't used that name in 10 years. Thalera's breath caught. "You led the Earthstrike teams during the Crimson Rift War?" "Yes." "You destroyed 5 enemy fleets and made it look like Ghosts did it?" "Yes." "You were the weapon Earth never admitted to having." Elias nodded once. "I was trained to end wars quickly before they could grow." Thalera walked slowly around the room, her mind racing. This man, this quiet man, had once terrified entire empires. "You could have killed Varric that day in court," she said softly. "I still can," Elias replied. "But that's not why I'm here." "Why are you here?" she asked. I came to stop another war before it starts. Earth saw the signs, your empire cracking from the inside. Your enemies waiting outside. If you fall, we all suffer. Chose peace, not conquest. He stepped closer. I married you to protect more than a treaty. I came to hold back fire. For the first time in her life, Thalara didn't know what to say. He wasn't lying. She could feel it. This man could have ruled through fear, but chose not to, and that somehow made him even more dangerous the next day. Rumors exploded across the capital. Everyone now knew Elias Kane was not just a human farmer. He was Ghostblade, the hidden blade of Earth. Some nobles grew afraid. Others were impressed. But General Varrock was furious. He tricked the queen, Varrock shouted to his allies. He's Earth's weapon, hidden in plain sight. He started planning the unthinkably a palace coup. He would take the throne, and Elias Kane would be the first to die. The sun had not yet risen over the capital city of Zeroth, but trouble was already moving through the palace walls. Inside the dark corridors, armored soldiers moved in silence. Their armor did not carry the queen's royal symbol. It carried the mark of General Varaktha, proud and ruthless commander, who now led a secret coup. He had waited long enough. Varak believed the queen was weak. He believed she had made a terrible mistake by marrying a human. And now that the world knew Elias Kane was once Ghostblade, Earth's hidden warrior Varak had even more reason to strike. He is a weapon, Varak told his men, and weapons must be controlled or destroyed. His plan was simple: take the throne by force, remove the queen, kill Elias Kane, all before sunrise. In the queen's private chambers, Thalara stood by the window, her eyes sharp. She had felt it in the air since last night. Something was wrong. Something dangerous behind her. Elias was calm. He poured 2 cups of hot leaf water and handed one to her. "They're coming," he said. Thalara turned quickly. "You knew?" "I've been watching Vihorik's men. Their movements changed 2 days ago. He built his army in secret, but not carefully." She took the cup but didn't drink. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? I needed to see how far he'd go. Now we know. He's committing treason." Thalara placed the cup down. "This palace has hundreds of soldiers loyal to me. If we act now, no," Elias said. "Varak has already placed his people in key positions. If you call for help, they'll strike faster. Many will die." She frowned. "So what do?" "We do." Elias walked to a locked chest near the wall, pressed his hand to a small metal panel. The lock clicked. The chest opened. Inside was a sword, but not just any sword. It was long, dark, and glowing faintly with blue light. Its edge shimmered with energy. The hilt bore the symbol of Earth's lost Shadow Legion. Thalara stared. "That's Elias picked it up. My blade. Forged from neutron steel. One of a kind. You said you wouldn't fight again. Said I'd fight only if I had to." He turned toward her, eyes no longer but focused. "Well," he said softly, "now I have to." The palace halls, once quiet and full of peace, now echoed with heavy boots and whispers of betrayal. Varak stormed into the throne chamber. With 10 of his elite guards, carried a power axe and wore black armor covered in battle medals. The throne was empty. A guard ran up to him. "The queen is not here. Neither is the human." Varak growled. "Find them. Kill the man. Me the Quinaliv. I'll make her watch." But even as he gave the order, something strange happened. All the lights in the palace flickered. Then the alarms went out. Then dashed silence. A thick, natural silence. His men looked around nervously. From the shadows a voice came, calm, cold. "You should have stayed in your corner, Varak." The general spun around. Kane. A figure stepped into view. Elias Kane. But not as before now. He wore black armor from Earth's Shadow Legion light, but deadly. His glowing blade was drawn. It hummed softly. Varak laughed. "You think you can stop a coup alone?" Elias didn't answer. Instead, he moved fast, too fast. One guard raised his blaster, but Elias was already in front of him. With one swing, the man's weapon fell in 2 pieces. A second swing dropped him unconscious. The others rushed in. Elias ducked, spun, and struck non-lethal, but precise. Each move was like a dance, each blow perfect. In less than a minute, all 10 of Vihorik's best soldiers were on the ground, groaning. The general stepped back. Impossible. Elias pointed the tip of his sword toward him. It's not impossible. It's Earth. Meanwhile, Queen Thalara moved through the palace halls with loyal guards. She wasn't helpless. She had trained as a warrior too, though few had ever seen her fight. She took back control of the royal defense systems, sealed the exits, and began turning Vihorik's plan against him. All across the palace, loyal forces pushed back, but the real battle was happening in the throne room. Varak roared and charged. He was strong. His axe could crush steel, but Elias was faster. They clashed. Metal rang against metal. Sparks flew. Elias's blade hummed with energy, blocking and slicing with graceful power. Varak struck wildly, his rage growing with each miss. "You're just a man," he shouted. Elias dodged and landed a strike across the general's shoulder. Man is enough. The fight went on, brutal and fast. But finally Elias disarmed Varak and kicked him back. The general lay on the ground defeated. "You can't stop what's coming," he said. "Even if you kill me, the Empire will never follow a human." Elias raised his sword, then paused. "No," he said, "but they will follow her." Behind him, Queen Thalara entered the throne room. She walked past Elias and stood over Varak. "You betrayed your oath," she said. "You chose fear over strength. And the people will see what true power looks like." She turned to Elias. "For years we thought humans were soft. But today, you reminded all of us that peace is not weakness. It is strength restrained." She looked at the sword in his hand, and you were the blade that stayed hidden until it was needed. The palace was secure by morning. Varak and his allies were arrested. Elias's name was whispered across the capital, not as a joke, not as a farmer, but as something more, something dangerous, something noble. Ghostblade, the warrior who fought, not for glory, but for peace. Later, in the garden, Elias sat beside Thalara once more. "You saved the Empire," she said. He smiled. "You saved yourself. I just helped." She looked at him closely. "I once believed I married a simple man." Elias looked back, and "I believed I married a warrior queen." There was a quiet moment between them. Then Thalara asked, "Will you keep the sword?" Elias looked down at the blade beside him. "For now," he said, "but I hope I never have to draw it again." And somewhere in the stars above, Earth watched silently. Their quiet champion had done what no army could do. He protected peace. The palace of Zirith was no longer quiet. The halls echoed with the sounds of rebuilding. Damaged doors were replaced, cracked floors were repaired, and the banners of the royal house were lifted once again. But more than stone and steel had changed. Had the people. The nobles now walked with caution. They had seen Elias Cain, the human they once mocked, fight like a shadow with fire in his hands. They had watched him defeat General Varrock and end a coup in one night. They had seen the Blade of Earth, and they had seen Queen Thalara stand beside him. Not as a ruler above him, but as his equal. In the royal throne room, Queen Thalara met with her council. Discussions of law, trade, and military defense filled the room, but now Leah sat beside her, not on the floor below, not on a distant chair at her right hand. Some nobles still frowned. Others had begun to nod with respect. Elias never raised his voice in these meetings. He asked questions. He gave ideas. He listened more than he spoke, and that made his words more powerful. That evening, after the meetings ended, Elias stood alone on the palace balcony. Watching the sky, Thalara joined him. "The people are talking," she said softly. "They always do," Elias replied. "They say I should make you general of the royal guard." He turned to her. "Would you trust a human with your armies?" She met his eyes. I trusted you with my life." For a moment, they stood in silence. The city lights blinked far below. Ships flew across the sky like stars in motion. "You never wanted power, did you?" she asked. "No," Elias said. "Earth taught us that power without control is dangerous. I wanted peace. But sometimes peace has to be defended with steel." Thalara looked at him carefully. "Then why did you marry?" "Me." Elias thought for a moment before answering. "Because Earth saw the cracks in your empire. You were strong but surrounded by enemies, and you were alone. I was sent to be a bridge, a voice of peace, but I stayed because I saw something. More." "What did you see?" she asked. He looked into her eyes. A queen who could be more than feared. A leader who could be loved. Thalara didn't speak. Not right away, but her silence wasn't cold. It was heavy with thought. That night, in her private chamber, Thalara remembered the days before her marriage. She had ruled with force. Her voice had been law. No one had dared question her, and yet she had felt alone. Her empire was strong but full of cracks. Nobles played their games. Enemies waited outside the borders. She had never trusted anyone not truly, and now, human had walked into her life, quietly, like a storm hiding in calm air. He didn't ask for power. He didn't beg for attention. He simply stood beside her, and when danger came, he had drawn his sword not to rule, but to protect. She closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt safe, but safety never lasted long in the galaxy. 3 days later, a message arrived from the outer ring of border region, near the edge of the Zarathian Empire. The message was simple and grim. An enemy fleet spotted near Sector 9. Unknown ships. Non-Zarathian, their numbers are rising. No response to hails. Prepare for conflict. Thalara called an emergency meeting. Elias stood at her side as military officers read the full report. Hundreds of ships, advanced weapons, no identification. The room filled with fear. "This is a test," Elias said. Everyone turned to him. Whoever they are, they watched the coup. They saw Varak fall. Now they think the Empire's weak and divided. Thalara nodded. "They're coming to finish what Varak started." One admiral stood. "We need to mobilize the fleet." Another added, "We need stronger leadership at the front." And he turned toward Elias. He noticed, but said nothing. Instead, he looked at the queen. Her choice, not his. Thalara stood slowly, her voice steady. "I will lead the fleet," she said, "but not alone." She looked at Elias. "You will stand with me." As commander of the joint forces, Elias bowed his head. "As you wish, Your Majesty." Preparations began at once. Warships were readied. Supplies were loaded. Messages were sent to border colonies. Earth, now a close ally, offered support, and the people waited. Some feared the coming war. Others believed, because they had seen. A human with a glowing sword face, 10 soldiers alone, and win. They had seen what Elias Kane could do in the days that followed. Thalara and Elias trained together, not with large armies, but in quiet corners of the palace. Blades clashed in the moonlight sometimes. Elias would strike, and Thalara would block. Sometimes she would land a blow. He would smile. Their bond grew not just in skill, but in trust. One evening, after a long sparring session, Thalara sat beside Elias on the palace floor, breathless. "You're holding back," she said. He smiled. "I always hold back. You didn't hold back with Varak." "That wasn't sparring." She looked at him. "Are you afraid of hurting me?" "No," he said. "I'm afraid of becoming what I used to be." She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "I'm not afraid of you." He looked into her eyes. Neither of them smiled, but something warm passed between them, quiet and deep. The night before their departure, Elias stood alone by the palace walls, staring at the stars. Thalara approached, dressed in her battle armor. He turned, surprised. "You never sleep before a war?" he asked. "Never," she said. They stood side by side. "You know," she said slowly, When I married you, I thought you were a tool. A simple man Earth sent to keep me quiet. I know, Elias said. But now I wonder. Wonder. What? If maybe, she said, I needed you more than Earth did. Elias didn't speak. Instead, reached into his coat and pulled something out. A small charm. A metal piece shaped like two interlocking stars. Earth's symbol and Zerith's crest. He held it out. For you, he said. Lara took it. What is it? A reminder, Elias said. That peace is worth fighting for. She looked at the charm in her hand, then looked at him, and for the first time, she smiled. Not a royal smile, a real one. The next morning, the queen and the human warrior left. The palace side by side, not as ruler and servant, not as alien and human, but as something more, as partners. The vast blackness of space stretched like an endless sea ahead of the fleet. At the front of it all was the royal flagship Valkyrian, carrying Queen Thalara and Elias Kane. Thousands of Zerathian warships followed behind. Their weapons were ready, their crews were tense. The enemy was near. Somewhere beyond Sector 9, an unknown fleet had entered Zerith space. No response to messages, no signs of peace. Only one clear message. They were here to conquer. Inside the command room of the Valkyrian, Queen Thalara stood tall in her silver battle armor. Her violet eyes scanned the holomap. Enemy signals were spreading fast, more ships than expected. Behind her, Elias Kane stood calmly, dressed in black combat gear. His glowing sword rested against his back, quiet for now, their surrounding. The mining colonies, said an officer. If we don't act fast, they'll cut off the outer ring completely. Another spoke. Our outer defenses will not hold without command. Queen Thalara turned to Elias. What do you see? Elias studied the map. They're using swarm tactics. Fast, unpredictable, but uncoordinated. If we hit their central command ship, the rest will fall apart. Can we find it? We don't need to find it, Elias said. You draw it. Out. He stepped forward and tapped the map. Here, fake a retreat. Leave one corridor open. They'll believe we're weak. Their command ship will move in to watch the victory. Thalara nodded. And that's when we strike. The plan was dangerous, but it was their best shot. Soon, the Zerathian fleet moved into position. They acted as if they were retreating. Some outer ships even powered down fake engine cores to appear damaged. The enemy took the bait. Strange black. Ships sleek, sharp, and fast charged forward. They had no markings, no flags, no signals. Like machines with no soul. They moved fast and in perfect silence. Then, just as predicted, a large ship emerged from the middle, twice the size of the others, heavily armored. This was the enemy command ship, the real target. Now, Elias said, Queen Thalara gave the order. All units, turn and fire. Seconds, space exploded with light, blue beams, red missiles, and golden shields flared to life. The fake retreat became a full assault. As Zerathian ships closed in from three sides, Earth support vessels joined from hyperspace. Adding firepower, the enemy fleet was caught in the trap, but the battle was far from over. Elias stood on the drop platform, looking down at the floor as it vibrated under his feet. The queen walked toward him. You're going down there yourself? She asked. Elias nodded. If we destroy the command ship's core from inside, we end this quickly. Thalara didn't argue. She knew what he was capable of. Still, something in her voice softened. Don't die. Elias smiled slightly. That's the plan. Then, without another word, he dropped from the ship straight toward the enemy vessel. Elias crashed through the outer hull of the enemy ship using a magnetized drop pod. Sparks flew, alarms rang. But the enemy guards weren't ready for what came next. He stepped out with his blade drawn, glowing bright blue, humming like a living creature. One attacker charged. Too slow. Elias spun, dodged, and struck. His blade hit the enemy's weapon and sliced through it like paper. He moved through the halls like a shadow, cutting through machines, breaking defenses. No fear. No mercy. He wasn't just a man now. He was humanity's blade. Back on the Valkyrian, Queen Thalara watched the live feed. Her jaw tightened as she saw her husband move alone through the heart of the enemy. Officers stood in awe. No one spoke. "He's moving toward the reactor core," said the tech officer. Alone. Inside the command ship, Elias reached the reactor. A huge chamber opened before him, lit by red pulses of power. Around it stood 5 armored guards larger, stronger than the rest, elite defenders. Elias didn't hesitate. He ran forward. One swung a massive plasma axe. Elias ducked, slid, and came up behind him. One strike to the back dropped the giant. 2 more came at him from each side. He flipped between them, kicked one into the wall, blocked the other, and countered with a quick slash. Only 2 remained. They circled him carefully, but it didn't matter. Elias charged forward, blade flashing. Within seconds, it was over. He reached the control core and pulled a small device from his belt. He attached it to the console. "Valkyrian," he said into his cum. "Detonator placed. Ready to blow the core on your mark?" Queen Thalara's voice answered, acknowledged. "Get out of there." But just as he turned, a blast hit him from behind. He crashed into a wall, groaning in pain. Smoke filled the room. From the shadows, a tall figure stepped forward. A leader, not a machine, but a humanoid in dark armor with glowing red eyes. "Are the blade they fear?" it said in a deep, metallic voice. Elias stood slowly, sword back in hand. "Then be afraid." The fight was brutal. The enemy leader was faster, stronger, and had a sword of its own. Metal clashed with metal. Flew. Elias bled from a cut across his shoulder. But he didn't slow down. He used every lesson, every strike he had ever learned, but still. The enemy pressed forward until Elias made a mistake. A swing missed. He stumbled. The enemy raised its sword for the final blow. Then a beam of violet energy hit the enemy square in the chest, throwing it backward. Queen Thalara stood in the doorway. She had come. Elias stared in surprise. "What are you doing here?" "Saving my partner," she said. Together, they faced the enemy. Together, they fought. The queen moved with royal grace and perfect skill, her staff striking like lightning. Elias's sword danced beside her, fast and sharp. 2 warriors. One purpose. The enemy leader couldn't handle both. In a final move, Elias trapped the enemy's blade, and Thalara struck the final blow. The enemy fell. It was done. They ran toward. "The exit core will explode in 30 seconds. The voice warned. They jumped into an escape pod just as the reactor went critical. Behind them, the enemy command ship burst into flames, then shattered into light. The enemy fleet broke apart. With number leader, no command, they retreated into the void. Zeroth. One piece was restored, and the people knew who had saved them. When Elias and Thalara returned to the capital, crowds filled the streets. They cheered. Not just for a queen, not just for a warrior, but for 2 who fought as one. Later that evening, in the quiet palace garden, Leah sat beside Thalara. Their hands were scratched, their armor was damaged, but their eyes were calm. "You didn't have to come," he said softly. "Yes," she replied. "I did." They sat in silence. "You once told me," Thalara said, "that Earth sent you to stop a war." "I did, and now," Elias looked at the stars above. "Now, I stay because I found something worth protecting." Thalara smiled. "You're not just a warrior," she said. "You're my shield, my sword, my partner." "You," Elias said, "are more than a queen. You're the reason I drew my blade,